James McCabe here, founder of the New Ireland TV. As you can see, I'm well encumbered. It's a scorching day. All my accoutrements with me. I'm heading into Omagh town centre for a protest against the gold mine, the Alvaradian gold mine. They are on a very aggressive promotional campaign to greenwash their image. And thanks to the endeavours of a small group of protesters, they haven't been getting things their own way the whole time. So I want to head down here now and see what they're up to. I haven't brought the camera out in public before. It is a bit cumbersome, but there we go.
Yeah, sure. We're here today campaigning against the Alvaradians' proposals to mine for gold in the Sperrin Mountains, which we think are going to devastate an area of outstanding natural beauty, and all in the interests of profit. I mean, there's a lot of propaganda about how many jobs are going to be created, but those jobs will be temporary, but the damage to the environment will be permanent. And we understand that there's a need for well-paying jobs in this area in particular, but we think that should be on the basis of investing in renewable energy and sustainable industries instead of destroying the natural resources that we have to hand. I mean, definitely I think that people are concerned. They don't want to see our environment just being devastated like this, because it's not just for us, it's for future generations. And once that kind of outstanding beauty that is gone, it's gone forever. It's never coming back, unfortunately. So I think that people are becoming increasingly aware that we have to actually take action today to defend our environment, particularly with the threat of climate change and so on, which obviously poses a real threat to the future of humanity in the next decades if we don't do something serious to address it.
Well, just in regards to climate change, it's a scorching hot day here in Omagh, but we've had in Central Europe they're having much more difficulties. Yeah. Did you have any insight into that, or what do you think the consequences of that are?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a socialist, and for me, all these issues are related to the system of capitalism, which puts short-term profit ahead of everything else. I mean, we know that we've got less than a decade to halve our carbon emissions if we're going to stop catastrophic climate change. But governments around the world, big business, are completely disinterested in this because they are driven by profit above all else. So that's why we think we have to change this system. We have to put in place a more rational system, which is based upon the needs of people and planet, rather than what's good for a handful of CEOs and billionaires.
Fantastic. And do you have any opinions on the billionaires that are going outside of Earth's orbit after having destroyed the planet?
Yeah, well, what does it say about how sick this system is? That we have hundreds of millions of people on this planet who can barely feed themselves, who are struggling just to survive, and then this handful of playboy billionaires are involved in a private space race. I think that says everything about what's wrong with the system. And the idea that they have somehow earned that wealth is nonsense. It was earned off the back of exploiting workers around the world, and that wealth rightfully belongs to us, and we should bring it into public ownership and use it for the benefit of society as a whole, not so that they can engage in their Bondville fantasies.
And we particularly want to protect our water, our air, our land and our health. So today we're just having a NOAA meeting, and just to keep the momentum going. So without further ado, I will call on our first speaker, who is Mirella Fife. Mirella is from the CAMIO group, Cooperate Against Mining in Omagh.
Thank you, from one earth woman to another. Welcome everybody, and thanks for turning up. What a wonderful day. So how can I speak in a way that's not profoundly depressing, dark, gloomy, about our manipulation of nature and environmental vandalism? Speak in a way that does not add another layer of anxiety to our already angst-ridden day-to-day life. To speak in a way that inspires us, feeds our soul, enables us to move forward, certain in the knowledge that our actions can and do make a difference. It is clear to me our governments are in a state of paralysis. Our politicians lack authenticity and integrity. Looking for leadership from them to guide us out of our resource-driven climate chaos predicament is pointless. Waiting for them to do something just does not cut it anymore. Leadership must arise from the people. We the people must speak, must act today. We do this by listening to our hearts in the dark of night, by tuning into our inner world, listening to that voice which we instinctively know to be right, allowing ourselves to imagine a different future. Like me, you may feel overwhelmed, helpless and powerless right now. The problems facing us seem vast, insurmountable, and way bigger than any small action I can take. So much that at times it would be easy to drift into resignation and denial. But then I think of my children and my grandchildren and the generations of humans not yet born, and I know I want to leave them the best possible chance of survival. Looking back to our recent history here in Northern Ireland, there are many from both sides who stood up and said, this far and no further, who gave their lives for what they believed to be right. I ask you, how different would your life be today if some other human being had chosen not to act, not to make a stand, chosen not to be accountable? As a woman, I'm forever indebted to the suffragettes who took on the establishment and gave me my right to vote. They are directly responsible for the quality of my life and millions of other women around the world today. They too must have been overwhelmed. We're here today as a community from all sides of the political spectrum because we do not want gold mining here in our beautiful Sperrins. We as a community do not want this extraction-oriented form of industrialization. The nature of our environmental crisis demands a holistic response. As a community, we have been persuaded, advertised to, pressured, lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, punished, and for myself, criminalized. Here's the thing. If all of this is considered necessary to gain our compliance, we can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in our best interest. Our global political economic system prospers because of our consent. Intention can undo consent. It is very simple. If we do not want toxic mining in the Sperrins, now is the time to speak. If I do not take an interest in my local community, the place where me and my family live, I won't be able to do anything about it when things go wrong. So go and shout about it on social media, write to your local elected representative, your local newspaper, talk to your friends and neighbours, vote with your feet. It's no good complaining afterwards. Hey, and thanks Dalradian for giving me and people like me a wonderful opportunity to serve our community, to make a stand for what we know to be right, to be part of the cultural and spiritual transformation that is sweeping across the planet, that our habitual violence to the natural world is no longer socially acceptable. Perhaps someday in the future, people will follow a thread back down through the ages to us, through the pages of history, inspiring them also to make a stand. In the words of our Daddy Roy, another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you all for coming today. It's great to see such support again. I represent the group CAMIO, Cooperation Against Mining in Omagh. Welcome to the Sperrins area of outstanding natural beauty. Isn't it ironic that it should attract such attention from these gold mining companies? It's sacrilege that this area can be threatened. The entire Sperrins area is under significant risk of gold mining in the future. It's not just a Greencastle issue. This land is valuable and precious. This land shapes us. This land is who we are. We are the land. We must look after it. We are the guardians of the landscape as the generations before us were. It's not a resource, it's not commodity, and no one has the right to steal or destroy it. This land is not a political bargaining chip to obtain power. This land is our home. This land provides our needs, not our greeds. 335,000 hectares have been subject to prospecting licenses over the last number of years. Approximately 25% of the land area of Northern Ireland is covered by these licenses. The Curranout project at Greencastle will potentially be the first in a chain reaction. The CEO of Dalradian Gold hinted of a series of mines in the region. Other companies are waiting in the wings to follow. Ultimately, this area will have the highest impact from mining and is under greatest threat. In the Sperrin region, 762 square miles are covered by prospecting licenses from 4 different companies: Dalradian Gold, Mountcastle Trust, Omagh Minerals, and Walkabout. Coverage in the Fermanagh Omagh Council region is 25%, and in the Derry and Strabane Council region is 70%. The area extends and covers Cloney, Dungiven, Feeney, Dunnamana, Strabane, Park, Draperstown, Plumbridge, Cranagh, Newton Stewart, Gorchin, Ruski, Greencastle, Cregan, Mountfield, Killyclougher, Drumlega, Castledurg, Killen, Gillygooley, Lack and Clanabogan. The threat to the local environment is not only real but imminent. We need to do something to stop it now. We are in a climate emergency. Politicians have a lot to answer for here. The silence from the main parties is deafening. There is open collaboration and support with the mining companies shown by some parties. It's not for them to negotiate the sale or betrayal of our country. Our politicians are supposed to represent us, carry our voice, and we are resolutely saying that we want to be left in peace to enjoy our beautiful landscape. They don't lead us, they should represent us. Almost 40,000 people have objected to Dalradian's Curranout project. It's time to change. Local political figures and bodies have supported mining companies in the past. Even our local newspapers regularly publish their propaganda. We don't work this business. We all need to state this. Short-term economic gain for long-term environmental impact is a bad deal and will put generations at risk. Are you going to let this happen? What will the subsequent generations think about you? History is apt to judge harshly those who sacrifice tomorrow for today. The region west of the Ban is underdeveloped in terms of infrastructure, yet your government wants to push this on the west now, despite us not having adequate transport, roads, hospitals, and no rail connection. The motivation is greed. Mining companies are offering incentives for support. When did you ever need payment to encourage you to make a good decision? What good is the money when your home is gone? Profits are to the owners and the shareholders of the companies, not the locals. The Crown Estate stand to gain 120 million from the Curranout project alone. The Crown's representative, the Lord Lieutenant of Tyrone, and his deputy sit on Dalradian's Tyrone Fund Committee, dispensing money in return for support, while not paying their £440,000 invoice to the PSNI for explosive escort duty. Do they want us to pay for that? The pursuit of gold is unnecessary. There are over 100 years worth of industrial supply in the vaults of the world banks. Emphasis should be on the reduction and recycling. 95% of the gold traded daily is unallocated. It doesn't exist, it's virtual money. Gold is a barbarous relic from the past that has brought only misery to those who toil for it. Will it really benefit us? What's in it for us? Perhaps a few thousand jobs for 15 to 20 years, then the prospect of emigration for the trained and skilled workers? Not to mention the subsequent pollution. an impact on our main industries of tourism and agriculture. Other byproducts will be the militarization of the region to supervise the explosives and increased harassment of locals who question or object to the mining plans. Dalradian are also claiming to be green now, a contradiction and an insult to people's intelligence, a ploy to legitimize their efforts. Carbon offsetting is a fallacy, an accountancy gimmick at best, greenwashing of the highest order. All very well if unavoidable carbon generation is offset or cancelled out, but if you create an unnecessary gold mine to produce unnecessary gold and generate thousands of tons of unnecessary CO2, generating enormous amounts of other unnecessary waste and pollutants in the process, then it is a pure sham. The key is carbon reduction and elimination, not offsetting. The mining industry are treating carbon offsetting as a license to pollute, and the net carbon neutral badge that they are keen to display is very often masks or distracts from the greater underlying issues. There is also speculation that the area could be used as a geological disposal facility for nuclear waste after mining is finished. Gold mining at any cost? Can we afford it? It is us who ultimately will pay with the ruination of our countryside. Join your local land protection group now. Get involved with the objection process. Sign an objection letter. Tell everyone what's happening. Lobby your politicians. Reject the proposed gold mining plans and find out more at don'tmineus.com. Thank you.
Inishowen is on a peninsula. We're surrounded by water with the Atlantic Ocean to the north, the Lough Swilly to the west, and Lough Foyle to the east. And part of it borders on the border with Derry. It has an intricate system of waterways and rivers and has two very special areas of conservation. Inishowen has many very important archaeological sites. Brinalia, the fort of Brinalia, which was the fort of the kingdom of Anya, goes back to the 6th century. And Inishowen is full of cairns, burial sites, rock art, old remnants of Druid temples. It's astounding, the archaeological finds that are there. It's very difficult to understand how the government would let a mining company come into such a place. It actually should be put forward for a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but the government has given out licenses. Local people have been fighting the licenses, the prospecting licenses, for the last 10 years. And recently, Argyle Resources, a mining company, have said that they're going to start drilling and trenching, and they have been, you know, constantly sort of in the papers of the last couple of months during COVID, talking about all the work that they're going to start doing. They needed another license to do it, and we've been fighting that since last October, and many people have signed against that, local people. Inishowen has a very vibrant population of 40,000 people. It's a natural sort of gravitation place for artists, musicians, writers. It's got beautiful common areas, very many common areas, and lots of room for people to have a good life. Sea of Inishowen from Mining Group was set up to protect Inishowen from the renewal of the prospecting licenses. And when we formed, there was already a very strong base there of activists and experts in the field of environmental law, etc. But we have to constantly fight with a department that is not on our side. It's on the side of the mining companies. In February, an All-Ireland network was formed called CAMIO, Communities Against the Injustice of Mining. It's an all-island network, including many people who are here today and many groups that are here today. The CAMIO comes from the old Druid word to protect, the circle of protection. And it's not a circle that just is for defence, but for taking in the world of wildlife and plants to help protect us and stay on our side. Both North and South are constantly among the top 10 countries in the world for attractiveness to the mining industry, with 27% in the south of land and 25% in the north that has been put forward and concession for mining companies. However, we in our local communities feel our voices are not being heard. We believe radical change in our thinking is necessary immediately, away from extractive mining. A future based on mining only creates an unsustainable economy that is not green at all and serves mainly the few and feeds ultimately the military complex also. Over the next 30 years, we will continue on this path to mine the same amount that we have mined over the last 70,000 years. Think about that. It is unsustainable. We cannot keep taking from the earth and not giving back. Parts of the world have no water in their taps because mining companies have left their water not fit for consumption. We need a circular economy and to move away from profit-driven economies to regeneration. As an artist and activist, I've been researching for the last 4 years and creating work around it through my art practice, learning from the people of Our Sperrins and Greencastle People's Office and other international groups and experts. I've also recently realised I've been preparing for this activism my whole life. Donegal is a place of my ancestors, of my grandparents, and where my mother was born. It is a place I roamed free as a child. It was the place that I went to for refuge up by the coasts, with seagulls flying overhead, holding beautiful granite and quartz stones in my hands, swimming in pristine waters. I'm home there, and I'll be welcomed home this evening when I go back to a soft wind of a warm sun going down. Donegal is in my bones, and I'm not going to give it up to greedy, toxic mining companies. I need to protect it for the children, the grandchildren, the future generations, and for the vast species of plants and wildlife that live with us and maintain the delicate life balance. My time has come to join others to protect what we know to be precious, far more precious than gold. Our ancient souls are rising. Please join me. Please lend your support to the groups here today and all over this island who are saying no to toxic mining. Together we're stronger. Your Míle Maith Agat.
The Fermanagh and Omagh district is one that's cursed at both ends of the district. We have the threat of toxic mining in the Sperrins, area of outstanding natural beauty. We have the threat of toxic fracking in the Fermanagh end. And it's one that to date we have resisted and we will continue to resist. But it's only through people like yourselves demanding that resistance, because if you look around you today, look to your left and look to your right, you'll not see too many other councillors, MLAs, MPs present. You'll not see too many other parties represented here today, and I know there are a couple of honourable exceptions. See Councillor Paul Geller down there and see the people before profit and some of the socialist representatives. But by and large, the establishment are not yet taking on board. They're listening to us, but they're not hearing our message. And I think we need to demand that every day. We do that by continuing to sign objections, by signing up to support groups, be that following them on Facebook or on Twitter, by attending demonstrations like the one today, and by contacting those members of the establishment parties that have so far not only resisted but argued against those of us who have pointed out the dangers associated with toxic extractivism. We have to acknowledge too that although it's very much a local effort, this is something that has snowballed into a national effort. And there are groups right across the north, right across this island, right across Europe and right across the world that have linked during COVID and before that through the threat that their specific area has been placed under. And myself and another person from the Greencast area went out to the PDAC conference in Toronto a number of years ago, and it was pointed out to us that Dalradian really was the test case for mining in Ireland. Once they got their foot in the door, it was going to open up areas like Inishowen, areas like Armagh, like Connemara, like Wexford, like Kildare, and everywhere else that's been touted for gold mining. And I think it's vitally important that we go away from today renewed and reinvigorated, that the struggle starts with each and every one of us here today, because it's not just for us that we're fighting, it's for the generations that are coming after us. And I think I'll end with the idea that we can strike fear right into the heart of government, because they have thrived for years on dividing us, and they have thrived on maintaining that division. But the protection of clean air, of fresh water, of clean land is something that knows no borders, knows no boundaries, doesn't recognise religion or politics or anything like that. This is something that unites everyone here today, every other group that stood with us previously and stands with us today, and every person who sent apologies. And it's that unity that can force change and can force concessions and can force a rethinking completely by this demented drive for growth, an unsustainable drive for growth that has been pushed by governments north and south. So thank you everyone for turning out today. Thanks to all the brilliant speakers today and all the rest of you.
Our island is one ecological area with rivers, air, humans and pollutants flowing freely over borders. Similarly, our planet is one living entity with ecosystems and species all interconnected and interdependent. So the notion that you can hold the majority of ecosystems and the majority of the population up for sacrifice for the benefit of the few is a ludicrous, ecocidal, homicidal and suicidal idea. Yet both governments on this island have bought into this, or rather, sold us to it. The mantra that Ireland is open for business, which they lay at the feet of the global mining industry, feeds this notion and holds our rural communities and our rich environment up for sacrifice. And now they have donned the green superhero cloak to justify this exploitation. Dalradians claim that they are carbon neutral and will be a carbon neutral mine exemplifies this farce, a wolf in a polar bear's clothing. The term carbon neutral is being used by industry to mean you can destroy ecosystems in one place so long as you fence off some trees somewhere else, or plant, which is often the case, the wrong tree in the wrong place. We need to protect the rich life that we have left, not destroy it and replace it with a nature that reflects themselves, superficial and ultimately damaging. Areas of outstanding natural beauty and special areas of conservation should mean something. And we need to debunk the greenwash myths. For a start, gold is not, contrary to what the Institute of Geologists Ireland claim, a critical metal. There is no need for gold. Gold is greed. Most of the gold extracted is turned into adornments or jewellery, or stuffed into bank vaults to show someone else's wealth. A local community member in Peru said to me, "Isn't it crazy they want to tear up our mountain to give it this gold, only to put it back under the ground somewhere in Switzerland?" Gold only has value as a measure of wealth because we as a society decided it was so. It's a story that is destroying communities and ecosystems, and it's a story that needs to be changed. Whatever perceived industry need, or demand rather, for gold, for electronics or the like, can be met with a vast amount of gold already extracted, enough already for the next 200 years and more. It's true that copper, cobalt, lithium, and other minerals and metals are needed for renewable energy technology. And it's true that we are in a climate crisis caused by the fossil fuel industry and need to transition to a fossil-free future as quickly as possible. However, it needs to be the right renewables in the right place and in the right way. We can't let this solution slip into the same model as the problem, thus becoming a problem itself. Climate action without social justice is put in a plaster over a decaying body. The climate crisis is a consequence, not the cause, of the mess we're in today. The root cause is the capitalist patriarchal system of organising our society based on othering, extraction and exploitation that has rose to dominance over the past number of centuries. Considering the length of human history and even the modern human, this system is a very recent occurrence. It's not the way it's always been, so it's not the way we always need to be. We can create a different story. If the climate crisis is used to justify the continuance of business as usual, we need to extract more, sacrifice more precious places, and more rural and indigenous communities to top up this parasitic system. Yet even the so-called critical metals aren't, for the most part, used for renewables. Much are funneled into the arms industry, fueling more war and destruction. Much of the tech industry is also excessive, with manufactured overconsumption in rich countries, along with planned obsolescence, where companies deliberately create products with a short lifespan, and a linear as opposed to a circular economy, with very little investment in the recycling of minerals and metals already extracted. The Iranians now have added copper to their project, thinking this will classify them as green. Yet much of the copper extracted is used for unnecessary construction, and it's certainly not environmentally friendly. The International Institute for Sustainable Development has said that of all of the metals, the aggregate potential for damage to human and environmental health is the greatest for copper. So the greenwashing won't wash. Extractivism is not climate action, it's the opposite. We need to transform our high-intensity, wasteful and growth-oriented economy into a courteous, well-being economy with a healthy planet at its base and social justice at its core. And this new world is not only on her way, we can see her green shoots rising up through the river. We can see her in the strong and creative resistance here in the Sperrins. We can see her in the regeneration of our soils through restorative agriculture. We can see her in the recognition of the rights of nature, both in Derry and Strabane, and for man and woman councils over the past month. Central government has failed to protect people, place and planet, and so communities are doing it for themselves and with each other. From Rockport to Woodburn, from the Sperrins to Anton, from Connemara to the Glens of Anton, from the Lakota Nation to Peru, Colombia, Romania and Australia, to name a few. We are stronger together. We are prepared together. Thank you.
We cannot trade health and safety for a vague promise of jobs from Dalradian or any other mining company. Otherwise, we would still be sending children up chimneys to clean them. And that is the logic of what supporting Dalradian is. We should look at international experiences. Across the world, former mining areas are overwhelmingly economically depressed and wrestling with the toxic legacy of pollution and environmental damage. The mining companies have gone from those places, taking their profits, leaving the local people to deal with the legacy. Of course, as we have noticed recently, Dalradians are experts in greenwashing. That is, presenting a polluting activity as in fact being environmentally friendly. However, for all of that, all the evidence points to Dalradian being exactly the same environmental vandals as the rest. We should also look at our Northern Ireland Executive. This has bent over backwards to ease the way for Dalradian. There is a unity in supporting the profit-making of a polluting company against the interests of people. We notice that there is not the same energy for promoting safe and sustainable jobs in the area under public ownership. Surely, if the money is available for one, it can be available for the other. That is what the Assembly should be backing, and if they don't, let them leave the field to those who will. Already, Dalradian is a threat to sustainable unionised jobs. The trade union movement on an all-Ireland basis has come out in support of the campaign in the Sperrins. What we are asking is not impossible. Yes, we want jobs. We ask for them to be safe and sustainable, the most reasonable of demands.
It's Mr. Katie Lynch, August is more an honour to of the George living you. My name is Katie Lynch and I am a member of Tyrone People's Dog. We are an organisation that was established to allow the ordinary people of Ireland to have a voice. The current system of Leinster House and Stormont are not working for the people of Omagh, Tyrone or Ireland the way that they deserve to be treated. The power should belong to the people. The people of Tyrone, my own family included, have fought for generations to protect our land and to stop foreign invaders. I will not be the generation that allows that to happen. We will not be the generation that lies down and allows them to walk over us. I was introduced to the amazing people of Greencastle a number of years ago. Words cannot do these people justice. From the first day I stepped foot in the humble caravan on the Green Road, I have been mesmerised by what our elected representatives have allowed to happen in this area, but also by the response of the local people. When I look out at the crowd today and I see people like the gentleman, Cormac, and Jacqueline, Sean, I know exactly who I would want to stand beside me in my hour of need, and it is not those in the suits and the government-issued cars. When we take a step back and look at how the two elected governments in Ireland are treating the people of the nation, is their treatment of Omagh, of Greencastle, etc. a surprise? How can we expect the current governments to care about the long-term health effects of poison in our water when their broken record politics have allowed COVID-19, the biggest global pandemic in living history, to rage through our country and fail to protect our most vulnerable in order to protect the elite? By allowing more than 7,000 deaths in our small island country really showed the true colours of Stormont and Leinster House once again. The vast majority, not all, of the elected representatives are only answerable to money. How can we expect a government to care about the DNA changes to our children's children when they ignore the children starving on the streets today? In the 6 counties alone, nearly 1/5 of people are living in absolute poverty. How can we expect a government to care about our rural areas Tyrone when they cut our healthcare money, our education money, but they can always find enough to give lucrative contracts to party donors? This is not the first time that foreign intruders have tried to intimidate and plunder our land, nor will it be the last. Dalridian is only a small fish in the big pond of capitalism, and capitalism is a disease that is rotting our world to the core. When the system allows 100 companies to produce over 70% of global CO2 emissions, they do not care for the ordinary working class person. The system doesn't care that in parts of Eastern Africa people are dying due to drought, while they're dying due to flooding in Germany. The system doesn't care that the Native Americans are butchered and killed as long as their pipelines are installed. So they certainly do not care about that the beauty of the Sperrins would be destroyed forevermore. How can I, as a school teacher, stand in front of my 7 and 8-year-old children and tell them that they need to reduce, reuse and recycle when they go to football training and see a Dalridian sponsor board on the sideline? I noticed a full-page advert in the paper just a few days ago promoting Dalridian, talking about the good work they're doing and advertising jobs. Propaganda and lies are no stranger to us. The oppressor would not be so strong if he did not have accomplices among the oppressed. When I think of those accomplices, a story by Jack London comes to mind. After God had created the rattlesnake, the toad and the vampire, he had some awful substance left with which he made a scab. A scab is a 2-legged animal with a corkscrew soul, a water brain and a combination backbone of jelly and glue. Where others have hearts, he carries a tumour of rotten principles. When a scab comes down the street, men turn their backs and angels weep in heaven. Even the devil shuts the gates of hell to keep him out. Nobody has a right to kill scabs so long as there is a pool of water to drown his carcass in, or a rope long enough to hang his body with. Judas was a gentleman compared to a scab. Yesu sold his birthright for a mess of pottage. Judas sold his saviour for 30 pieces of silver. Benedict Arnold sold his country for a promise of commission in the British Army. The scab sells his birthright, his country, his wife, his children and his fellow men for an unfulfilled promise from his employer. Yesu was a traitor to himself, Judas a traitor to his God, and Benedict Arnold a traitor to his country. A scab is a traitor to his God, his country, his family and his class. I'm sure we could all replace the word scab with somebody else. For too long, far too many elected representatives have failed to put people ahead of party politics. It is now time for us to rise up and fight back and take back the power. We shall overcome. I will finish with the words of South African communist politician Sam Scan. You cannot imprison ideas. You cannot impale people's ideas on bayonets. You cannot crush thoughts. You cannot concentrate views behind barbed wires. And no amount of suppression, no amount of brutal force to hinder people in their expression of their views and the attainment of their aspirations will ever succeed. Sorry, my elder.
So it's really beautiful to be back in my hometown of Omagh. 18 years ago, I went off to university, so I'm not that young. And ever since I've been coming back for Christmas and Easter and summer, I've always been hearing stories about what's been happening with Dalridian. And maybe 15 years ago, it seemed like we would never all be standing here together saying no to this company. It really seemed like they had got into the cracks and the nooks and ripped apart all the things that held together our community.
I heard stories of my friends not able to go to the pub because they didn't support the mine. People were scared, they were intimidated, and now I feel so hopeful because I've seen over the last 4 years, 3 years, how much things have really gained momentum. And I want to read a little story that I wrote 4 years ago when I didn't have as much hope as I had now. Just before I talked to Morella, who I have the privilege of calling my yoga teacher, and she discovered some strange machinery off the back of her house. And then we got Gordon in to take some photographs, and we all started to Nancy Drew around and see what we could investigate and find, and reached out with a group of people of Greencastle. And I've been so inspired to watch from afar, to see all the amazing inspirational work that people in this town have been doing. And now, after 18 years, I've come back to my hometown, to my home area, and I feel so full of hope that this is a place that I can really feel at peace and feel at home. And I feel so heartened to see so many wonderful people here to stand up for the kind of future that we want for this part of the world. Once upon a time, this glen was awarded Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty. Turf as black as bog oak, mountains sprinkled white with snow, robins with breasts as red as roses. As children, we heard stories of panning for gold in the sparkling salmon streams of freshwater pearls. Generations farmed till a Canadian mining corporation cackled into seismic surveys and saw shareholder profits. Dalradian hankered after a gilded harvest that could be marketed to Americans, who coveted Irish treasure to link them back to a land that they'd been starved out of. Dalradian packaged their poison into payoffs for politicians, local paper advertising, iPads for school children, community funds, access roads, new gates, multi-million-pound purchases for boggy fields with low yields. And what had held together through terrorism and famine fractured under the shiny promise of jobs, investment incentives, a bit of sponsorship for the local football team could not decontaminate mercury leaching into the Owen-Killieu River. Animals sent signs, rose up in landslides, but instead of joining forces against wickedness and chasing the Dalradian devil, we turned on each other, fought nature, became miners, took their peanuts, painted as nuggets, lived in the shadow of their explosives. Tunneling beneath the mountain, kept the beauty of the valley caged in a glass coffin, said, "It's not dead, only sleeping." While we toiled in caves, keeping vigil, believing beauty could recover from cyanide, waiting for an outsider to save her. But Dalradians' princely sons cannot kiss life back into what they've stripped. What price air, water, soil, spirit? We've bitten into progress and it's poisoned us. But I don't feel like that anymore. I really don't feel like that anymore, and I'm so delighted to see all the wonderful work that's been happening, to see that we believe in a different type of progress, to know that that is a progress that can be democratic, that can be broad-based, that can be an all-island approach, that can be a full global approach. And I just want to thank you to each and every one of you for giving up what is probably the best Saturday we have ever had in Northern Ireland, in the world, to be here standing together against extractive mining and for a future that is clean and fair and at one with nature. Thank you, everyone.